Okay, well, hi everyone. My name's Brandon. It's great to have you all here. I wanted to start off by just saying at any point, if anyone has any questions, definitely bring them forward. And if anybody has any expectations from this class or what you're going to learn or any questions from anything you might have heard from me in the past, then just speak up and feel free to ask just anything throughout the class. So my first question here is, who here uses some kind of divining method or dowsing method? Anyone? Yeah. Okay, basically. So I wanted to ask, so what form of divining do you use?
Usually the pendulum.
A pendulum. And do you phrase questions?
Yep.
Okay. And do you use charts, or you use kind of your own internal method of finding answers?
Yep.
Okay. And
Pendulum.
pendulum dowsing?
Not for water, well, just for various things.
Like when you go to the store, do you use it?
I have
Kind of
used it
stuff?
for food and supplements, but also for finding lost things.
Yeah.
All kinds of
That's a
things.
skill I don't have.
But not lately, and I kind of lost the pendulum I had used, and the one I picked up wasn't working. I think I need a new pendulum.
Okay.
You're at the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I might be able to help you later too.
Oh, great.
I brought my supplies because I teach a workshop later, and I want to make sure this system, I make sure that, well, I'll tell you about that in a moment. I want to just kind of ask everybody what systems people use. So
I have learned to use a pendulum. I don't use it as a practice other than I get it out to figure out what classes to take.
yeah, you said you don't use it what?
I don't use it as a regular practice.
Oh, as a regular practice. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right.
I just use it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Like, do you use it when you go into stores and things like that, or just at home? Yeah. Okay.
I use it for
A lot of things. Yeah.
with clients for various different healing modalities, as
Mhm.
well as transitioning from this life to the next.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's really useful that way. Yeah,
Also
that's
for water.
water. Yeah.
Was on farms.
Yeah. So you use a pendulum for finding the water,
Pendulum
and what?
L rods.
L rods. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I do something similar to that. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. I use it on and off, not regularly.
Uh-huh.
I do like doing the alphabet with it, or word dowsing.
Word dowsing.
To create sentences.
Oh, neat.
But I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
But you helped me pick out this pendulum, which I thought.
Yeah, I remember you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've gone to 2 of your workshops.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. And get with me later if you want. I have a workshop later. I'll have all of my pendulum supplies and stuff. I have a fresh batch of things. Since the last time we saw each other, I've started making people's pendulums from scratch, because I found there were things like the necklace or like the chain might be in harmony with somebody, but the crystal not be in harmony, and or vice versa. The crystal's in harmony, but the chain isn't. So it's become my common practice to make pendulums that are fully in harmony with the practitioner. That way there's no static interference in the device. So yeah, would anybody else like to share what they do, how they use pendulums? Because I'm trying to just get kind of my finger on the pulse of what people do. And one more thing, do you use questions at all, like when you divine?
That as well.
Okay. 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 And do you use divining?
I do.
Wonderful.
I have L rods, I have pendulums, and I do inner divining a la Siglanagar.
A la K?
Siglanagar means a dowser.
Okay.
That,
Oh, yeah. I've seen the name.
yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And sir? Do you use divining at all in your life? Water dowsing, yeah. Pendulum.
He teaches the dowsing course here.
Oh, good. What's your name, sir?
Richard Troy.
Richard. Wonderful to meet you. Great, great. And would anyone else like to share any way that they use divining in life? Yes.
Okay. I've never had much. I love the pendulums, all of them. I've never had much luck with any of the dowsing tools, but on the big stuff, I hear voices tell me things, and sometimes I have visions, and I can sometimes feel when I'm attracted or repulsed by something. So I don't. Once in a long while, I use a device.
Okay. Yeah, so devices are great. I love them. It makes my life really simple. And I'm sort of the, I'm 46 years old. And so I'm kind of at the kind of young, kind of older, I'll soon be 50. It'll be, it's like, okay that I'm missing teeth in a few more years. And, but the younger aspect of my generation, we want everything fast. And we don't want anything to be hard either, which is not that great, to not want things to be difficult, because difficulty builds character, and it's something my generation has kind of lost. So a lot of my students, they want things to be fast, but they don't want to work for them. And so this system is, it's been my goal to bring back the scientific stability back into divining. It really was a problem for me in the beginning of learning how to divine, that my divining was only about 93 to 96% accurate. To me, that was a travesty. To everybody else, it was like, okay. To me, it was a problem, like a serious problem. How in the world is this only 93% accurate? And as you know, I've said in the past, if 2 plus 2 was 4, 96% of the time, we'd all know we had some problems, And so it's been my life's work to try and figure out what are the kinks in the system. Like, what is it that keeps these things from being 100% accurate? How is it that well finders, people who find water, can put the nail on the head practically 100% of the time? And, or at least if something's off, then being able to backtrack and figure out why, what happened. I've really wanted to figure that out. So what I found is that in our tools, first off, that there can be the device itself, this in this case being the pendulum, there's the L rods, whatever device we use needs to be in harmony with who it is that we're getting the information from. Otherwise, there's going to be some interference. It's like speaking on a telephone line without a clear channel. So I've made it my business to figure out these things and try and educate people on what the problems could be. So that's one of the main problems, is where are we getting this information from? Who am I? Like when I say, oh, I think this, who's the me that thinks this particular thing? And if this me is this eternal aspect of the creator of the universe, of God, of whatever we want to see ourselves as, then how can I think one thing and then think another thing? Like, what is this? Who am I in the beginning? Who's the me when I leave this body that's still here? Where is here? What is here? So, in saying all of this, this might sound like etheric, but I think that this simple things like these thoughts that I'm projecting out to you guys right now, that this is where the problems are with divining. Who is the me that gets the answer? Who is the me that likes this tree over this tree? Who's the me that prefers vanilla over strawberry? And what is it to have the mind of a child? which I found is the most important thing when it comes to true divining, is having the mind of a child, which is, of course, the key to getting into heaven. So how do we develop the mind of a child? Through divining. So this is why I always tell people that if I don't care what I think, why should I care what you think? Why should I care what you think? If I go into divining something based on what I like, or even caring at all what I like, then I'm lost. Because the me that has this information that I'm divining from is beyond my likes and my dislikes. So if I'm trying to get information from the aspect of me that is eternal, that knows where water is, 756 feet beneath the surface of the earth, and where exactly to drill, how to tell them to tilt the pile, you know, and how much water flow you're going to get here, and actually communicate with the water and ask the water, does the water, do you even want to have anything to do with these people? So if I can do all of this, then, which by the way is to me critical when it comes to water. If I find somebody water and the water says, no, then I'm just like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else. I'm not seeing anything here for you. Because the water itself has an emotional component to it. That's why I use the term divining, because I'm not here to douse. The word douse means to strike, and I don't want to hit water. We're all hitting things and forcing our views, which comes back to what I'm saying about our opinions. You know, why force our opinions on anything? There's no adventure there. This has to do with developing the mind of a child. So the mind of a child, everything is an adventure. What's more cool about divining or dowsing than the adventure of things? If I go into something and I know already what I like, well, where's the adventure? You know? If I care what I like, if I care what I think, where's the adventure? There's no adventure left. We're in the known now. And when we go into something knowing, then life is becoming more and more narrow. Every step we take, it's more and more narrow. When we go into life with what we don't know, which is truly basically everything, then life becomes more and more expansive and more fun. And that can bring the adventure back into divining, is putting your thoughts to the side, putting your feelings to the side, and saying, well, how many times have we trusted our feelings and got in bad, awful, deadly relationships? You know? So if love itself can get us killed, then why trust our feelings? I mean, like they're absolute God's word. Why trust them like that? You know? There's no reason. We don't have any scientific proof that we should trust our feelings like they're so important. Our feelings have led us astray. Our thoughts have led us astray. There's something higher than that, is what I'm saying. When we go to find water, we don't say, oh yeah, well, right over there, that's where I want it to be. No, you go in, you check things, you kind of, you know, you're kind of looking, but your eyes are a little bit crossed, and because it's not about what you see. There's a higher faculty in you that knows where the water is. So we do things to kind of scramble what we think when we go into finding things, because we know when it comes to finding water, our thoughts don't matter. So what I've found is that I use reference points. Every science has reference points. It uses reference points. Every science. There's no science in the universe that doesn't use reference points. That's our stability. That's what keeps us anchored to the one who knows these things. That, sure, we could say it's us. We could say it's who I really am. But is that, do you really know that's who you are? Do you know that part of you that knows all of these things is that part of you balancing your checkbook? You know, so there's what I've discovered is that it's best to not define ourselves and say, well, this is who I am. Because if who you are today is different than who you were when you were born and who you are when you die, then maybe it's just best to put these things to the side and not say, well, this is what I think, this is what I want. These are how do I find what food is good for me? Because who's the me that we're talking about in this moment? It could be the me that's down here in the belly. That could be the me right now who's speaking. The me could be up here. The me could be just who I was yesterday, who I knew myself to be yesterday. So what I found is that I use 4 primary reference points that I say are in the physical locale. I use the divine ego because to me, the ego has been the whooping boy of the entire metaphysical movement. It doesn't make sense to me as a scientist that the ego could be the bad guy in our lives, because how is the ego's the thing that's going to tell me, hey, there's a car coming down the street, get your butt off the road. So how's the ego the survivor and the bad guy at the same time? It doesn't make sense. Something else is happening. The ego can't be the bad guy. So I found for us when I started to check the divine ego and I started to really hone into, because I've had to use the ego in life. I had prostate cancer at a very young age, and over half my life ago, because of having Lyme disease and rickettsia and these things as a young child. So I've had to bring out the survivor in life to live. And so I know the ego. The ego to me is like a pretty cool dude, who will come out and doesn't care about the rules to life. It's going to survive. So to me, the ego is a very special part of us. So the home for the ego is the spleen. So this is where I touch the ego, is in the spleen. So if I want to nurture my ego, I don't go as far as to buy things I wouldn't buy a mobile phone that was in harmony with the ego. I wouldn't buy a car that's in harmony with the ego. But I'll darn sure buy the ego some ice cream or a candy bar or something like this to just empower the ego. And so, because the thing that I found is that if we just, even doing something like putting our hand on our spleen and thanking the ego because remember, right, every other class you guys go to, quite likely, the teacher is going to tell you that the ego is the problem that keeps you from 100% accuracy. Most people are going to teach you that in life. This could be the truth. The ego could be the problem. But maybe the problem is that the master, who is who you really are, the one who knows where the water is, the one who knows everything, the master has gone away. So now who's going to take over but the ego? The ego is a divine mechanism that will make your butt survive whenever you're asleep. It's a divine body. There's nothing wrong with the ego. The problem is that, it's like the egos had to run the factory because the master left. It's like saying, okay, there's a factory. The ego's like the janitor, right? But then you go home and you leave the janitor there, and you never come back to run the factory, ever. So of course the ego is going to be like a crazed maniac. What would you be like if you had to work year after year, decade after decade, with no breaks? We'd all be maniacs. So we can't blame the ego for being a raving lunatic, because actually it needs a break. It needs to know that, okay, I can chill out. So how I do that is I put my hand on my spleen. And I'm just like, thank you. Super special, really awesome ego. Thank you. You're awesome. You're great. Thank you for keeping me alive all of this time. But I need you to relax now. There's no danger here. No airplanes flying through this ceiling of this building right now. Everything is okay. I need you to relax. If anything happens, oh, super special, really awesome ego that I need to know about, I'm listening. If you have any information regarding my survival, I'm listening. I'm all ears. But other than that, I need you to sit there and be quiet. And I found that this purring mechanism happens in my body. It's like when a cat gets up on your lap and it starts to purr. That's what happens. There's like a purr that will happen in your abdomen. Okay? And when that happens, you know your ego is super chill. It's like, oh, okay, the master's home. I don't ask my ego for anything. Why would I ask if I'm the master? I just tell it, and that's it. I've never found the ego fighting me like it does everybody else. You know, they say, well, I'm fighting with my ego, I'm struggling with my ego. Well, this simple technique will do away with all ego struggle immediately. There's no, it doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes a few seconds. So what I found is that the battle for the consciousness, the battle for space that goes on with the ego, where we say we're battling the ego. Well, what I found is another reference point that I call the inner child. So the inner child, for most people, is beneath the belly button. A very healthy, robust inner child will be right at the belly button, the center locale for the inner child in the body. The inner child holds all of our original, you could say, stellar DNA. It's like that original DNA imprint of who we actually are, who we were born as. It's alive within each one of us. Now, I did like 20-something years of serious inner child work. And what I found is that if I knew what I know now, it would be a few months worth of inner child work, at best. More like a few days or a few weeks, if I would have really known that what was going on in my lower consciousness centers, the battle was between the inner child and the ego. So if you do ego work, it automatically gives your inner child the space to bloom, to blossom. So if I would have known about ego work, I could have cut down my inner child work by 20 years, easily, overnight. So the inner child will basically, you know, one thing that I do for people is I'll find like a stuffed animal that's in harmony with the inner child. That way, you go to bed, you cuddle with the stuffed animal or whatever, and it's like by default, because you have a physical object that's in harmony with your spiritual being, the inner child, it invites the inner child to become physically dominant in the physical world. It gives it a physical reference point to grow. So that's a very simple thing, but what I found is this whole inner child work, just years and decades of inner child work, can be put to rest by doing a little bit of ego work. Then the ego lets go of the ropes, the inner child has space to grow, and it's over. The war is over. So that's, I'm working my way up here. I like to start at the bottom and straighten things out at the bottom. So this is what I found in the lower consciousness centers, is ego work is the most important thing. And don't blame the ego for anything. It's never the ego's fault. It's always the master's fault. And the great thing about that is, well, then the master can come and just take responsibility. And it's over. The whole war is over. So that's the two bottom reference points. The two upper reference points are the sacred heart, which is located in the thymus region. And the sacred heart is like the spiritual heart. Once you get up into the energy of the sacred heart, there's no more war going on. There's no battle up here. And so I use the sacred heart as a reference point to where it has to do with the physical interface with our spiritual body. So a lot of times in the beginning, when I was learning all this stuff, I ate foods for, I don't know, a couple of years, a few years, that were in harmony with my sacred heart. It was my main reference point that I used. So I could build a physical space for my spiritual body to dominate, you could say, to where my spirit body was in control of this physical, rather than vice versa, you know, where our spirit is kind of pushed around by our physical body and has to kind of get in wherever it can. So I use the Sacred Heart for finding a lot of things that have to do with this physical world, because I want to build a space here where my spirit and physical are kind of empowered in one envelope. So that's what that's the Sacred Heart. And above that, just above our head, about 3 inches above our head, is what I call the house of the higher self. And the higher self is a little bit tougher of a reference point to grab onto, but essentially that's where I find that most people want to go. But I always advise people, look, just like start at the bottom, build your way up. It's very hard to feel the actual higher self. It doesn't come easy. It's something we have to really kind of build the energy of our higher self to where we can actually begin to feel and connect with it in a real way. It's tricky because when we use this reference point, a lot of times we come down, like, and I've even found this, I found this a few months ago. I was like, something's weird is going on. And I found that I just had to continue to like lift up my pendulum to up above my head when I'm checking things with the higher self, just for a little moment, because my reference point had moved down. It was almost like I got tired of lifting up my hand, and so I was tricking myself, and it was just a little bit lower than the higher self. And I wasn't getting 100% accurate results. I always know whenever I'm getting harmony with too many things, I'm like, something's tricky here. Because there's stuff for us everywhere. I mean, fruit trees, things to plant. There's items for us all in this world that will stimulate our spiritual growth. And I guess that's where I should talk about next, is the whole point to all of this, to me, is surrounding myself with objects, with foods, feeding this body with foods and with objects, cars, phones, houses, that are in harmony with these reference points that I'm talking with you guys about. Because then we're surrounding ourselves with our own energy in this physical world, and it helps us to grow in a way that's just incredible. And we're getting energies out of our lives that aren't in harmony with me. But the thing is that the harmony with me part is where everybody stumbles, because we think, oh, well, this is who I am. But what I'm trying to say to you guys is this whole me, this whole I thing, is what I found as a scientist gets everybody tripped up. Because who we are today isn't who we were yesterday. We don't even know about this spiritual thing that happens to everybody that I call body switching, which is me and you are in the same room and we're talking and stuff, and then what happens is there's some mechanism that's a mystery to me, but because I might have too much weight that I can't carry, if you're the strongest person in the room, then you get to carry some of my weight, because it's stuff that I couldn't get rid of, karma and things that I couldn't get rid of. So we walk into the room, we have a conversation, we walk away, I feel great, you feel like crap, but it's because you took on my weight, because I couldn't. And it's a whole way that the human family works to get rid of stuff for each other. So then in that moment, how do I identify, well, is this me that I'm feeling even me? There's all kinds of things there's ways that this me or I just trips us up. And because there's just all kinds of things. I mean, you guys probably know about possessions, you know, family curses, all these kind of things turn us into things that we are not, if we choose to believe that that's who we are. Kind of by default, you know, we're taught that that's who, oh, this is, you know, Brandon likes strawberry flavors, you know, then we start identifying with it. And that, you know, I'm just kind of using that as an example because I remember you know, just being a child and thinking grape was like the best thing in the universe. And it was like just this wonderful flavor. And then I found strawberry. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a strawberry guy, you know? Then like later on I find peach and it's like, you know? But it's to say that all of this attachment to who I am, I, me, this is to me the whole issue is what are we doing with this stuff finding? If you already have all the answers, then why all the questions? Why? Make sense of it. Why the questions? Why would I ask, is this good for me? If I ask that, I can tell you, my success rate has plummeted from 94, 96% on down as I've gotten out of the questions. I can't even ask, is this right for me anymore? It's just like, my pendulum's like stand still, nothing, right? Because it knows, hey, that's not the right thing to be doing. I shouldn't be asking those kind of questions. They still can be automatic because for how many years did I ask that question? Loads. So what I do is I take my reference point. What's my reference point that I'm checking out right now? Let's say it's the Sacred Heart, right? Then I'll check and just be like, well, is this water in harmony with my Sacred Heart? Is this pendulum in harmony with my Sacred Heart? Is this pin in harmony with my Sacred Heart? Now I'm checking harmony. I line up the reference points. Like one reference point is right here, my higher self, right, or my Sacred Heart, and another reference point is here. So now all I'm checking is I lock into one. I lock into the higher self. I lock into the Sacred Heart, the divine ego, the inner child. I lock into it until I get my harmony spin. By the way, harmony, I don't know why it's this way, but harmony is counterclockwise. The harmony spin is counterclockwise. Okay? Disharmony is clockwise. It's not because I want it that way. It's not because I like it that way. It's because that's how it is. In this system. This system. So I lock in to the reference point, and then I check and see, is this in harmony with this? Is this in harmony with this? So then my likes, my dislikes, my preferences, all those are out of the window. I'm really focusing on I don't give a damn. Like I'm 100% locked into throwing my preferences out, throwing my likes out, throwing what I knew yesterday out. Because if today really is a new day, then that means that so is this new today. So I can't go on what worked for me yesterday. Life is like a little ladder that we're always climbing or going down, preferably climbing. So every rung that we get to is a new rung. If we can make sure that our likes and our dislikes, our preferences and stuff are out of the way, every rung is a new adventure. Every day becomes like exciting. I wonder what store I'm going to go to today. Wow, I don't know. Boy, it's been a long time since I found anything decent at Whole Foods. It's like, wow, it's not depressing. It's cool. It's cool. Because we find that there's these little mysteries at the corner store. You know, that's like, oh, wow, I don't even like that tea. It's so awesome. You know? It becomes like this really cool thing as your energy builds, and you know scientifically why your energy is building, because you're building it. You're not taking in all of these other energies that aren't in harmony with you. You're taking in things that are harmony with this specific part of me, this specific part of me, and your energy builds and builds, and you know why. That's the cool thing.
Where does mind and thinking fit in with all the rest of that?
Mind and thinking? I mean, the mind, as far as I can see, is just another tool, and I'm fairly aware of things like the Course in Miracles that says, you know, that everything is mind and stuff. Just fairly aware. I think I went through around like 150 of those daily practices or something like that. But to me, the mind is no different than, why would I trust the mind? Like it's the absolute. Why? How many ways has the mind shown me that it's not the absolute? That I can't trust it? I mean, not absolutely. If I'm not going to trust if I don't trust love, then why would I trust my thoughts? You know? Because my thoughts, all I have to do is watch a TV program. Next thing you know, I'm believing whatever that program just said. You know? So there's something higher in us that's higher than all of that, that's higher than our thoughts, that's higher than our emotions. And so I define love in this system. To me, love is harmony. Because it's like, if any of you guys have studied anything to do with plasma, the plasmatic interactions of two bodies, if this body is in harmony with this body, they'll have a plasmatic interaction. If they're not in harmony, they can be close to each other in physical locale, but not have any plasmatic interactions. They just can't see each other, you could say. So I define love in this method as harmony. But the disharmony is equally awesome. And this is part of getting out of the likes and dislikes. Is if I find that something is not in harmony, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not looking for harmony. A lot of times I'll really, to center myself in this system, I'll check and be like, is right here, Sacred Heart, right? And then I'll just start checking around the body because I want to get some disharmonies so that I can make sure my harmony is really locked in. Disharmony is no less awesome than harmony. So this is how I break down the system of likes and dislikes and of preferences and what I knew yesterday and these kind of things. It's broken down by having a science that doesn't care what the truth is. It doesn't even care. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It just matters that we find it. So does anyone have any questions?
So if you're looking to work through your day, through your life, making decisions that feed your energy, that are in harmony with you, you've mentioned that there's 4 reference points that you're based on. How do you determine which reference point to ask, or do you ask them all, and what if they don't agree?
I'll check to see, like, who needs me right now? Who needs attention right now? It's a simple thing. Then I'm checking my ego. Nope. Inner child's good. Sacred Heart's good. Higher self is good. So from what I just checked, by just checking that, it's definitely the Sacred Heart is where things need to move for me right now. So then when I go to, let's say, get lunch, right? I'll pull up the Google Map system and I'll check out, well, food for the Sacred Heart. And I'll just go down the list, checking each one. I clear my mind. Each one I clear my mind. And I'm checking here because it's got a stupid name, Dickie's Diner. Who in the world? I would never eat at Dickie's Diner if I was choosing the name to a place. But I've got to like get really neutral about it, you know, and say, well, because aren't there hidden gems everywhere? Isn't a diamond, you don't just find it all polished, ready to put into a ring. It's hidden in there. You've got to remove things from it. Little gems are hidden everywhere. So because of that, you know, you've got to clear it. But that's how I do it, is I check to see who needs my attention. You know, who's you know, yeah, who needs me? You know, who needs me to feed him today? And it has been the ego before, you know. But once I really started to touch the ego and get the ego to chill, that's what I found the ego actually needed, was rest. Like rest. So does that answer your question? Okay.
So where's
And
the ego when you're checking?
the spleen.
Okay.
Yep, it's on the left side of the body, kind of at the bottom of the rib cage. And I just put a finger, like a hand on the spleen, you know, and I just talk it down. The ego's had to stay in control way too long because it's the survivor. And all of us well, you know, most of us have had traumatic childhoods of some kind. And the ego never really relaxed after that because we never came back and said, okay, that's what happened when I was a child. I was a true victim as a child. Now I'm an adult. So you can just relax. There's no danger here. So then comes the problem of, is my device that I'm using in harmony with these reference points enough to get no interference? Right? Every part of the device, actually, you know, down to where, you know, I've been to where I chop my chain off and just go to Walmart and will find some silk thread, polyester thread, anything that's in harmony with these reference points. Because again, if we're looking to clearly get information, we need to have as little interference as possible. And something like using a device that's not truly in harmony with these reference points can be a problem. And I advise to at least get to the Sacred Heart, if not the higher self. Because if something's in harmony with the higher self, it's going to be in harmony with the rest of the reference points.
Once you, referencing the pendulum before, once you determine that something is in harmony, have you found that it consistently stays in harmony? Because you mentioned that it changes. So
It does.
if you chopped off your chain one day and put on a silk cord, there's no guarantee that tomorrow you need to chop off the silk cord and put the chain back on.
That's correct.
Very busy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
You're right.
Well, that's the thing about what I was saying about my generation earlier on. We want things fast, but we want them also easy. But we can't have it that way. That's not the way this world is designed. It's not supposed to be easy. So it's very fast, this technique. It's very, very fast. I can find things lightning fast. But first I have to perfect my system. Now for me, making pendulums is so now I go onto eBay. I just, of course, first I check I'm running low on chains. Where do I need to check for chains for my students? I checked all of the students who are coming to the class tonight. I don't need to know your names. I don't need to know how many people are going to be there because I already know. The part of me that I'm accessing for the information, I already checked to see where do I need to go to get pendulums. And I already went and got them way ahead of this event and had the pendulums shipped to me, the clasp shipped to me, the crystals shipped to me, so that I could put together everybody's pendulum who comes to the class this evening, and that way everybody has a pendulum that's in harmony with their higher self. I already have the supplies. So that's what I found is kind of the best thing to do is, you know, go to a crystal store, go to Amazon, go to, you know, whatever it is, eBay, and find things kind of in bulk. Because, well, I became the de facto pendulum producer for all of my students and stuff because I've, for so many years, been working on this higher self energy that you have to build your way up to. You know, it doesn't just, you can't just get to this reference point and stay here. It has to be, you have to build up to it. So that's what I do is like find kind of bulk. Because like these little chains, they're only going to be like, you know, $3 each or something like that. But they're extremely valuable. And in a 10-pack, you might have 3 that are in harmony with you. You might have 3 that are in harmony with a sister, and, you know, 3 that are in harmony with somebody else, and 1 that isn't, that just sits around until it gets dull. But in the meantime, you know, you've you know been able to climb your ladder. And a pendulum that was in harmony with you yesterday that you had to put away, somebody else comes along and it works for them. So you're like, here you go. So, yeah.
Two things. One is that we're like 10 minutes left. And
Okay.
then if you want to mention the questionnaires about if whoever wants to maybe go to the workshop this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
That they fill out.
Yeah, sure. So if anybody is coming to the workshop this afternoon, I do have questionnaires so that I can get a good view on what everyone would want to use this technique for, so that I can individually cater it and say, okay, well, this is how I would approach this field of learning. So, because we all have our different ways. I was saying in the opening of class, when Trent taught me how to water douse, I asked everybody at the conference, who's the best? And everybody was like, that guy, Trent. So I paid him for an hour and a half. I sat with him for an hour and 15 minutes and asked him questions, right in Saratoga?
Mm-hmm.
Saratoga's close?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay, well...
I'm confused though.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, you actually got Trent to stop talking after an hour? You've got some mad skills.
I asked questions, so I kept him busy. Yeah, yeah. We canceled each other out. In the end, there was silence. Yeah, yeah. So I asked him everything I could think of about dowsing, water dowsing. And and then at the very end, I said, okay, now tell me the name of a well that's right here, somewhere right here, and let's see if I can do this. And he said, Dr. So-and-so's original well, his first well. He's like, there's a little bit of a controversy. It's either here or here, but he didn't tell me where it was. And so I did my thing. I went over and I was like, it's right here. The water's this deep. It's flowing like this. And, this and that about the water. And he goes, wow, you're really good. Maybe you don't need to use tools. And I was like, wow, well, how do you do that? And he's like, I don't know. I have to use these rods. So then I asked the water, right? Because why would I not ask the source of the information? The source, the water, obviously wanted me to find it, or we wouldn't find it, So I asked the water, and the water said, put your hands like this on your kidneys, and now the water just bends me over like this. And so I use a pendulum to kind of like say, okay, well, is it, because it's kind of like rough on the body. It really like, it's really strong. It like pulls on my gut and makes me, it's like gravity, right? And so I'm saying all of that to say that techniques, it's best to go to the source. If I would have just thought, well, what technique do I use to find water without a pendulum, I'd probably still be asking. I wonder how to do that. But I just asked the water's like, do this, and that was it. Now I find, water with a pendulum, kind of like the general direction, and I'm like, okay, it's over there. And then I just kind of walk over, and the water just does the rest. So you never know what you're going to find. So the best thing to do is like get out of the way, get out of what you've known, get out of what you've heard, and go to the source and see what you can find. Because the stores that we prefer, it doesn't matter. Everything that we prefer keeps us locked in the past. That's the nature of our preferences. They're knowns. Our likes, everything we like, we've already tried. The great mystery is in getting out of that.
So when you go to the source, it's different for everybody because we're all different energetically, right?
And everything in this world is made for everybody. It's like the beautiful thing about this world is variety.
It's like an individual relationship.
Yeah. So Corey has been in the past like, thinking that it was bad that I couldn't eat a food that she could eat. And of course it's inconvenient for the chef, but there's ways to meet. There are ways that we meet. The most important thing to me is that, if we're at a restaurant, So maybe we can't share foods. But Lord knows I'd rather have her Reuben than whatever it is that I get half the time, except that I don't care about what I like or what I don't like. But we might need different foods because God knows why. Who knows? You know? Why we need certain things at any given time. See, this Brandon that we would agree that you're talking to right now still believes in time. You know? When clearly it doesn't exist. Clearly. But still, if we were agreeing on who you're talking to the Brandon who believes in time. When clearly it's not a factor. So we have to be in harmony with the one who knows everything in advance and why Corey needs the navy bean stew and Brandon needs, you know, a burger. Because they know something about what's happening. They, you know, I say they because the real Brandon is attached to a whole team. So the being knows what's going to happen tomorrow and why I needed to eat that certain thing. Maybe so I have an upset stomach and I don't leave the house. Maybe so that I can be extra grounded, so because I'm going to deal with somebody that I need to be very grounded when I deal with. I don't know. The me that we would agree is talking right now does not know. But the being, the real being, knows these things. So it's a matter of being in harmony and speaking that being's language, speaking the real one, the one, speaking its language so that there's no static interference. And what I found is that language is harmony and disharmony. It doesn't give a damn about yeses and nos. It doesn't care about likes and dislikes. It doesn't do the yes, no, maybe system, in my opinion. Because where in the universe, when the sun talks to our planet, where is the yes, no, maybe? There is no yes, no, maybe. There's harmony. Harmony is this universal language. So this is what I found in why my system was never 100% accurate, because I wasn't speaking the language of the one who knows. And it looks like we have about 2 more minutes.
Where's that Brandon who's all
Because of Corey, who's keeping me in check here. So does anyone have any more questions? And by the way, I'll be back. What time is our class? Again, this is, you know, Corey's is so amazing. 1:30 to 4:30. So we'll be back at about 1. If anybody wants to find me, in fact, the best thing we can do is if you want to get a pendulum from me, I can make them in between, and you guys can buy a pendulum from me. Depending on the material, it'll be between like $15 and $20, and I put it all together myself. It's not a problem for me to just put these things together because, again, it's very fast. The chain will be in harmony with your higher self. The crystal will be in harmony with your higher self. The silver that I use to solder everything together, the little eye ring is in harmony with your higher self. Period. That way, there's no static, and you guys don't have to come to the thing later if you want one. And in fact, I would tell you that everything in this system is all contained within the basics. So if you took even what you learned today and just run with it, you'd have everything you need. But of course, the class later will go into more depth, more into in-depth, and I can answer individual questions around, you know, these kind of things. So are there any other questions? We might be early today.
Yeah, and by the way, there is a half an hour break before the next class, or next
Oh, there is?
talk. So
Oh, good.
If people want to still talk
Oh, cool.
or hang out, it's okay.
Yeah, great.
Like,
But I got to go.
you guys would-
I'm just
okay.
kidding. Okay, go ahead.
What have you found the differences between materials, like when we were shopping for this pendulum
Uh-huh.
that came up, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love.
Yeah,
So I kind of steer away from crystals just because.
yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't know. What I have found, though, is that for the higher self, specifically, most of the time I found clear quartz works.
oh, really?
Yeah. Just like most of the time. It's much easier for me to find clear quartz that works in harmony with the higher self. but I've come a long ways since the last time we talked, because every day I'm climbing up my energetic ladder too.
Yeah, I guess, and as
Yeah.
you said, it changes all the time.
Yeah, it changes all the time. But you know, yeah, I've found that for me back then, I wasn't even aware of how important, what a game changer the chains could make. You know, and because I was focused on this part, but then it just occurred to me, wait a sec, like I can just look for pendulum chains. I couldn't really find any pendulum chains, but I found these necklaces. They're like these, they call them like snake something chains, and they work really well. One sec, she's had her hand up.
Where will you be putting these together for us if you don't come this afternoon?
Oh, well, I'm coming this afternoon for the course, but I'll be just like going back to my hotel room. I might come back here a little bit early, but I'll put them together there. I just have to have a little plug-in.
The course is at 1:30, but you'll be there at 1. So
Yeah.
if you wanted to pick it up at 1.
Yeah.
is that okay?
Make sure that I get a picture of you before we go, so I can, like, if you want a pendulum, at least let me get a picture of you. If not, some money too would be great. Because one of the things I've found with people is if they put $1 into my PayPal account, I can lock into their energy like they're right next to me.
How about cash?
Cash?
Yeah.
Cash is king. Yeah.
That's physical.
Cash is perfect. Yeah. Because like money is very, very spiritual. I can feel people's energy directly through the money. Yeah. So,
I was just wondering about silk. I found an old pendulum in my box this morning that's up with silk, and I think I had
Neat.
struggling with metal and whatever. So would it make sense that silk would just be easier or less, probably less varying, and I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I don't know as far as like what would be easier or not.
Or less picking up less charge, or less not being a metal.
Yeah, no, that's I could see a case for that. I've never really checked. I like to use the necklaces so that people can put them on. They can kind of be more with them. To me, why I wouldn't use just silk also is how light it is, you know. And like these chains, you know, they just spin on their own, you know. And I mean, like, I don't know if I would get this kind of action out of silk. I'm really not sure because I've never used it. I don't even know if it holds a static charge. So maybe then the static from you could be moving it some. I don't have enough information. And thanks for the question, because it gave me a chance to say the most beautiful thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've never done spinning. I've been doing the yes and no and been frustrated
Yeah.
lately, and it hasn't been.
Well, I started.
I could see how the spinning could be easier with a chain.
Yeah, and that's where I started was Raymond Grace and stuff. You know, I mean, I love Raymond's work, but I have some real questions for him. You know, that eventually will get answered. I don't think, as I was looking at it last night, and I was thinking about his work, and because to me, I've never seen anybody be able to change a crow into a blackbird. The crow's just a crow. The blackbird's a blackbird. I've never seen anybody be able to change, you know, one like this pin into a pin that looks like this. But people go around thinking they can change everything. Maybe they're changing something inside. That's kind of where I'm leaning at as a scientist looking at Raymond's work, and that it works so well for some people. But the way that I'm built, I'm not able to change things like that anymore. In the beginning of dowsing, divining, I was using Raymond's method and changing the energies of things. What I've found for where I am now, there's no adventure there for me. The adventure in what ignites my inner child and my thrust into life is in discovering what's already here for me, not making things right for me. So this is, you know, it kind of diffused my ability to use that yes, no, maybe method by using this method. I used to be, I loved the yes, no, maybe method. I loved the charts. I loved it all. But when I started using this method, it kind of rearranged my energy to work in a different way. That, from what I can tell now, lines me up more scientifically with the one who already knows what's here in this world. And I think that as a creator in this world, it wouldn't be fair if we could just make everything to be what we wanted it to be. Then what's the game? How's this a learning ground if we can just make everything be what we want it to be? These are questions that I ask, you know, myself, so I can understand what it is that I'm even doing here. Because that's important too. So I think that's it, huh? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, great, great.
If I can make a comment?
Oh, yeah, please.
You've turned no force into the next level, not forcing anything
Yeah.
into the next level.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just a comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, my goal is, by the way, everyone, my goal is to bring science back into this field. Because, and excuse me, just for one sec, I just want to just say, my goal in all of this is to bring science back into this field. It's a travesty to me that divining has turned into a pseudo-whack job pseudoscience for kooks. You know, when you know, well-digging companies in my area have gone out of business for thinking that diviners are kooks, because they can't find water no matter what. Corey's brother works for, where does he work for? Or should we even say? Central Hudson. I think they're hated these days, but it's not me. But they have tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment to find leaks. And the way they do it is they tell the foreman, yeah, okay, we're going to find the leak. And they call the guy on the crew who has the willow branch. And he comes and finds the leaks. Because it's so much faster than them using $100,000 pieces of equipment. So this is my goal in this, is to help revive the science of this. Because it's just a travesty that it's turned into some kind of pseudoscience that you can halfway count on. So I just wanted to state that is the goal of this class and this teaching for me. So, yes, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.